Hey, Lena.
Hi, Lee.
Hi. So nice to see you again.
Yeah.
And okay, so welcome everybody to come to the Lena and the Lead talk. Based on the idea of here we try to showcase the originality of each person. There's something beautiful in each person, which is unique. We like to discover it. So today we are very pleased to invite Lena to come to this channel. So so the first question, maybe you want to talk about a little bit your background, please.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thanks for inviting me for being here with me.
You're welcome.
And I find it's kind of a big question, but we have a few
Yes,
minutes to go.
that's right.
But in a way, I have various backgrounds, as probably most people have. But so I wonder a bit where to start. Yeah, okay, let's put it that way. I'm a music and dance teacher, so that's my main profession.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have been trained in music for many years and started doing music when I was 10 or before that actually, and I got into it in a very intense way until I was 20 years old about. And then it changed a little bit because I was a flute player, and I still am a flute
Mm.
player. But then I also started to add like a larger big picture of getting involved in dance and movement practices from like the age 18 years
Wow.
onwards, or
Mm.
maybe even a bit early, like 15, from 15 years onwards. So that's when I started to do yoga and awareness practices. And I also did some acting at that time, where we did a lot of self-exploration with the body and with communication and interacting with other people in an improvising way.
Mm.
And so that's kind of my base where I started from as a youngster. And then when I was 20, I got into music and dance studies in a more like as a university program. So I got trained in a bachelor and master's program in Salzburg in Austria.
Oh, I love this city. So I wish I
Yeah,
can live there. Yes. Yeah.
yeah. So you have visited it.
2 times. Yeah. Very
Mm,
nice. Yeah.
nice. Yeah, I've basically lived there for 6 years
Mm.
during my bachelor's and master's degree.
In a
And
performance, yeah,
hmm?
performance, music or performance.
Yeah, it was also involved. I was also involved in performance,
Mm,
but in the end, it was like not a course that prepared you so much for stage, but more for teaching.
okay, like a teacher.
So yeah, and it's in the tradition of the Karl Orff method, which is like you might know the xylophone playing or the it's a basic music training for children, but we
Mm,
also use it to work with adults and maybe with disabled people or with elderly people or youngsters or kids. And
mm,
so and I think it's a very broad and interesting training and work, and it prepared me very well for what I do now. So I still
mm,
do basically do music and dance teaching. And but then also what was very important for me is just broadening my awareness for like practices that keep you growing as a person, self-awareness, self-care, um, like deep diving into awareness practices and transformative practices. And I basically did a lot of yoga training, meditation, breath awareness, and I also was trained like in the Feldenkrais method. I don't know if you know that technique.
Do you want to explain a bit the technique?
Mm-hmm. So the Feldenkrais method is an awareness practice, or also a body-mind practice, where you do very subtle, gentle movements, and at the same time you attend closely to what you sense and perceive through the body. So you train your proprioception in a very refined way, and it helps you to get to know yourself better, your movement patterns, how your attention flows through the body. And so it's a very subtle and very gentle technique to explore yourself and your movement better. And it also so through raising your awareness inside yourself, it normally also helps to get rid of problems like backache or other joints that may trouble you, or maybe breathing patterns may change, or just an overall well-being in the body. It normally is like very grounding and connecting to yourself. So it's for me, it's an important learning in the body-mind practices, and a good also comparative, or no, not comparative, complement to yoga practices that are often a bit more tough, or like they're a lot about the postures or the stretching of the body. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And Feldenkrais is more about really how the awareness flows through the body, and also the ease in movement. Finding ease in movement is very important. And so you don't strain your body, but you accept your limits. And by that, you find a lot of ease. So it's really a very gentle approach that can change also the way you approach your overall life, like not with confronting your limits a lot, but rather accepting them, and then through the subtle changes you still see how the limits will expand, or limits become potential, or something like that. Yeah.
Sounds very interesting.
And like, so yeah.
Yes, please. Yeah. So
yeah, now please ask what you wanted to
okay,
ask.
yeah, because I was thinking, like, when you start to have this kind of need, desire to have self-awareness, because I talk with some people, and I feel like there are some people, they just don't have it. I'm sure maybe you have some student and you try to help them, and when did you start to have that?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and it's actually very connected to my own personal who am I, who am I? Because it started quite young, like age 14, 15, 16. Because as I mentioned earlier, I'm a flute player, and I was kind of a professional path to become a professional flute player. And at the same time, at that age, I received a lot of pressure from my flute teacher, who was a new flute teacher, and we didn't get along very well, and so I ended up embodying a lot of stress, and yeah, and then I started to have like issues that were traveling through my body in various body parts, and it was getting quite uneasy. And so I stopped playing the flute actually for many years. And instead of that, focused on other musical expression forms like guitar and singing and piano playing. And as I said, the whole body work came along with it, and also dance. But like the initial point was really to explore myself in terms of, okay, how can I feel comfortable in my body again? Because I was really like shut off from my own comfort, which was very unpleasant. Like at the age 14, maybe many people are, but in my case, it was especially connected to the flute and especially connected to physical pain and uneasiness. And so that was very tough, and it really helped. It really told me, like, this feelings told me that I have to look at it and have to find ways that I feel comfortable again. And so that was when I started to go to yoga classes, and like age 18 I discovered the Feldenkrais method. And then from age 25 onwards, I did a whole training for many years in the Feldenkrais method. And along with that, I had many years, sometimes more, sometimes less, of breath practices, awareness practices, meditation. And so in the end, I think, although I mainly right now teach music and dance, this is still very much a base for me, through which I connect with myself and also with other people. So when I teach music, it's very basic forms and very much music performed through the body, through the ease of the body. And because I think many professional musicians and even just normal music students have issues with their body, because sometimes the strain is just too tough, or the pressure. And so I think we also need to transform how we teach music or how we understand music, like music as really as a free expression of the self, and not just playing some instrument that can get very narrow and limited if it's too elite, if you practice it in a very elite way, which was part of my story also. And now I'm opposite. I teach very inclusive music and dance classes that sometimes are very low level, but with the goal to include everybody, that everybody can be part of music and dance teachings of mine and others. And so I try to help people to remember that, together with other people, that music and dance really have the base in a comfortable body and trust in yourself and ease with yourself. So that's kind of my basic message, I think.
It's very interesting, because today I just talked with my brother, and we were just making fun of one famous person called Elon Musk, because I was just making fun of his dance, because his dance is absolutely terrible. I saw there's a human. By the way, I posted this video on his channel, so he can see. Yes. So basically, I think he has some kind of disconnection, like when he dance, like it's not him, or like he doesn't. He's like a stranger with his body, like But I totally understand. Like I think I used to be like that too, because this is so important. It sounds very basic, but so many people don't have it.
Yeah, it's really the embodiment that can be like, we all have a body and we all are a body, and but still the connection to ourselves can get deeper if we shine some awareness on it. Yeah. And some fun practices like dance improvisation, or can be a lot of fun, and like it's also a great way to connect with the community, and sometimes like even dancing together or to interact with other people in that way makes you more alive and more connected with yourself.
And
then,
so you have been teaching for a long time, yeah?
Yeah, I'm teaching for about roughly, let me think, 10 years, 10, 11 years now, but more intensely so like the last 3-4 years. And before that, I also that's another part of my background. I also did a whole course. I did a PhD in religious studies. Like after my music and dance training, after my MA, I did a PhD in Vienna. And I wrote the thesis on pranayama, so on yogic breath practices. And it's actually going to be published soon as a book. So yeah.
You need to show us. Yes.
Yeah, and it happened to be like to be an important part of my life to write this thesis for. It took like the whole program of the PhD took me like 7 years.
Wow.
And I also learned Sanskrit, and so I really did a deep dive in the yogic traditions. But my work was on modern pranayama, so I work on modern texts on pranayama around, like most of them around 1900, and yeah, but also like the yogic traditions from more or less from Patanjali onwards are still very influential for understanding pranayama as it is practiced today. And so it's a theoretical work on pranayama, which can be a bit challenging to read, I think. But
I think so, because I have no idea what it is. I can guess, but
have you
yeah.
heard about pranayama?
I think maybe I heard in Chinese, because English sometimes they have different translation. Yeah, but you want to just briefly talk about, because maybe we need one episode to talk about that. But what is that about?
The pranayama. Yeah, so pranayama is a Sanskrit word, and it contains prana, which means breath, or also the breath of life or life force, and ayama, which means working with this life force or taming this life force or using this life force for directing it in your body so that it can be increased and that it serves you in a better way. Like, we all breathe every moment, and from once we are born onwards, and so the yogis thought it's a very key to how we live. If we understand the breath better, we also understand ourselves and life much better, and so we can also regulate ourselves in through regulating the breath. So that is the basic idea. And also, like I mentioned, yoga and yoga postures before, and it's in modern yoga that we do practice like modern yoga as we practice it today, or modern postural yoga focuses a lot on the postures. But in pre-modern yoga, in hatha yoga, the breath practices and the pranayama were much more important. Because it was the central practice to get hold of these life force processes that are so it's connected to aging, to longevity, to health, to how you focus your mind on a specific area within yourself or outside of yourself. It's connected to meditation, to higher states of consciousness, even like the yogi said, like breath. If you regulate your breath, you can get superpowers. And so there's a lot of stuff that highlights the huge potential of the breath. And so my PhD thesis is about all these bundle of very exciting practices.
Wow.
And at the same time, it's a written text, so it's not that practical. But it made me, so I wrote this thesis partly in solitude. It was also time of the pandemic where I wrote most of it. Somewhere up in the mountain in a lonely hut. And so I had quite a bit of time to investigate my own breath in a deeper way, and did some path together with the breath. Although I don't consider I still consider myself very much like at the beginning level of the pranayama, because I think it's really a lifelong learning to inquire into yourself through the breath.
Yeah, Austria is like perfect place to do those practice. Yeah, you have so many mountains.
Yeah, and I also spent some time in India for my research. That was 2018, 2019, I spent several months in India and visiting yoga institutes and swamis and also libraries and archives. So since I did historical research, I was involved in archival work quite a bit. But also I did practical pranayama courses there and met a very dear Swamiji who died in 2019. And yeah, and before that I was traveling to India quite a bit before that also.
Is it your first, like, yeah? So what is your first time visiting India? I mean, you went because your yoga practice, yeah?
The first time I went out of pure interest and maybe more than interest. I felt like I really want to go and get to know the culture because I sometimes felt very attracted and very enchanted by India and Nepal also. I was very interested in Nepal. The Himalayan part of the Hindu culture or also the Tibetan part. I was very interested. And so when I was my first time I visited India and Nepal, I was 21 and I traveled alone. I just went there for 2 months. I didn't have much plans, but I just it was
Did
very
you meet
intuitive traveling.
because I heard there you can see all different kind of people there, yeah? Like anything, did you see anything like you feel like really this is very different from where you're from? Like, did you have some kind of cultural shock or?
Oh yes, certainly. In the beginning, it is so different from everything that I experienced before. At the same time, I felt like even before I went there, already very connected to the culture in some way. And I also like normally when I travel, I kind of try to have a feeling, or I normally have a feeling of being protected in some way. So, and when I was in India first time, I also felt like Mother India is hugging me, and so I had no big issues.
Wow.
Other than like I got some stomach issues, and I got a bad cold that lasted for that was a bit intense. So my immune system was a bit troubled, but like I traveled to India four times, and 2 times that was like several months, 6 to 7 months, and I never had any major issue in the that was some kind of very dangerous situation. So that didn't happen, which is very lucky. And yes, your first question, like there were so many new impressions and so many interesting people that really also touched me in a very deep way. And I was also lucky the first time I traveled, I was invited to a family home, like for the first days when I arrived in Delhi, I could stay with the family for 5 days because I had a friend in Salzburg who came from India, and he said, once you arrive, you just stay with my family, and you will be like it will be a warm welcome. And so I stayed for 5 days, which was a very good start.
That makes big difference, yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And once I started to travel alone after these 5 days, like things started to change a bit, of course, but still, it was a great start. And then I went to Dharamsala, where I got a bit in touch with Tibetan culture, and also, yeah, that was the first time where I met a Tibetan Lama, for example, which was very, very deep. And I had a Tibetan friend who I met also in there, and he took care of me because at that time I was a bit sick. And then we also went to a Tibetan doctor together, and he helped me to get the medicine and took care of me and looked after me. And so it was very friendly. And then I went straight to Nepal from Dharamsala through the west border of Nepal. So I entered through the land and got a visa by arrival. And it was really nowhere's land, because normally people fly to Kathmandu and there is a lot of tourism, but I entered through the west border, and I didn't have anything else than a very rough map of Nepal. So no travel guide, and at that time there was no smartphones or any internet connection. And so it was very, very, very improvised, and my travels were very basic.
Wow. So just see what will happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That's I like it. Sometimes I do that too. Yes.
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah.
And I was it was monsoon time, and at some point it rained, it heavily rained, and so I went all by buses. So the local buses in Nepal are very terrible transport, actually. And then I happened to stay a night like in a very basic shed with like roof that was made of like an iron part of like a very thin iron. No, I don't know how to explain that. So it was a very thin roof, and there was such a heavy rain that it like was very noisy the whole night. And we were next to the rivers, and then at the next day I entered the bus again, and then the bus just crossed a river, like, and was like the wheels were covered with water and all that. So I think it was maybe a bit dangerous to travel like that, but nothing really bad happened to me, but it was very adventurous in a way.
Wow. I'm sure you have a lot of story you can share to us. Yeah, it's very nice. Yeah. So so after the Nepal, you later you came back to Austria. Yeah.
Yeah, and I continued my music and dance training in Salzburg. So that was
Have you ever thought to live there, like live
in
in
Nepal, India, Nepal.
different country? Yeah.
Yes, in a way. I also considered, when I went there for 6 months, I considered it like getting a feeling of how it is to live there. And at that time, like when I went for a longer period, that was maybe 2015, 16. No, no, sorry. 2010, 11. So I went for a longer period. And at that time, I also had an Indian boyfriend who lived in Salzburg. So in a way, I also felt like maybe I could live there. But in the end, I never stayed longer than half a year or 7 months. So it didn't really happen to really actually move there. And in the end, I think the change would have been a bit too big.
That's right. Yeah. So, yeah, it was a very nice introduction today. Yeah,
Yeah, thank
yeah,
you for asking all these like very, very crucial and important questions.
yeah. You're welcome. I have to choose my question because I have so many. Like I have to. Okay, which one? Like because yeah, I am a very curious person, so I ask all different questions. Sometimes I don't have I don't have all the knowledge, but I like to know. I have
Yeah.
never been to India. I've never been to Nepal, but I always want to visit as well.
Mm,
And
great.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
think you are a very good listener and you're really interested from the heart. That's what I'm feeling. So that makes a nice atmosphere to really talk about oneself. Thank you.
Thank you too. Yeah, yeah. So I hope we can still have a second episode, like because I want to know more. I want to know, how, especially what is in your thought, because I'm sure you experience many things. Maybe you can't even show it to people, like, because for those practice, and it's very deep. Yeah, sometimes it's your inner self. I'm really interested in that. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I like to continue our conversation.
Thank you so much for today. So and let's continue next time. Okay. See you.